Hi, babies. It's the even more fabulous Mother Love coming to you live and in living color. How about that part right there? And Mr. Kennedy. Hey, Mr. Kennedy. Can you hear me? I can't hear you talking. Oh, what's going on? Can you hear me? Well, listen, in the meantime, in between time, we seem to be having some kind of technical audio issue. Can you hear me? Okay, I can hear him. You're not even trying to. Can you hear me? Can you hear? Can you hear me? Okay, wait, why he got his face all balled up? I want to start the conversation today with day 2 of the Democratic National Convention in Chicago, Illinois. Shut down, where they are setting not just the United States and the voters here, but it seems like as former First Lady Michelle. I don't know why we would call her former. She gonna always be a First Lady. Former First Lady Michelle Obama said yesterday. I mean, they gave some. I don't even know where to start with the speeches because every one of them was just so on point and so emotional, and you could see it in people's faces, and you could see the people crying, and I mean, men wiping tears away because they believe what she said. Hope is making a comeback, and we
Yes, it is.
Hope is making a comeback. Can you hear me
Yes, it
now?
is. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, but you sound muffled now.
But I can hear you clearly. I can
Okay,
hear
well
you.
that's cool. So we want to make sure we don't have a failure to communicate.
We
So
don't have that.
okay, well last night, I mean, I'm still just like I'm giddy, but I'm optimistically and cautiously giddy because the energy is so high. I mean, when you think about the people that were in Chicago at the Democratic National Convention, and that the vice president was in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and it was just like everybody was like just cheering to the rafters. We have to keep that momentum going because that's only from the 19th to the 22nd. On Thursday it'll be over. What do you see that we first? Let's talk about what the speeches last night. What was your take on it? From the governor of Illinois, who said, "You want to know what a real billionaire look like?" And he was pointing to himself because he's a real billionaire. He said, "Why you asking people for money if you're a billionaire? You said you weren't gonna spend money. You didn't need anybody else's money. You got your own money. You could pay for your own campaign." And just yesterday, he was whining, moaning, and complaining like a little petulant child, talking about, "Well, they won't let me spend my money. I can't spend my money on my campaign." Okay, how stupid are we? And that's why I'm so glad that like when she said before the convention, when they go low, we go high. When they go low, we go with the truth. When they go to stupid, we go to because you can't fix stupid. You just some people are just relegated, and that's what they feel like, and they got a passion for that, and it's really, really frightening. So when we see all the emotion and we hear the great speeches and we see how people are getting involved, and they when they were doing the ceremonial delegates, the
Yes.
state of California gives Kamala Harris our 411,000 electoral. I thought that was great. And we knew, and like what she said, and what former President Barack Obama said, and what the governor of Illinois said, we can't take our foot off the gas. What was your take on the speeches yesterday and the energy in the room?
Well, I mean, I thought we were taking them one at a time instead of trying to lump them all into one because everybody had a different take on what they were saying to the audience. And the one thing about former President Obama and when he got up and he spoke, he was the keynote speaker for last night on him saying, remember that this is not going to be an easy race, and it doesn't matter that you hear a poll that says that she's even, that no, that she didn't draw an even with the former president, or she may be up by 1 or 2 points. Don't drop your guard because you already know that they placed 3 people on the Supreme Court. You don't want to have this to be something that the Supreme Court decides. That can happen. So you have to be careful, you know. And a lot of times people don't think about that. Is that a lot can happen between now and November 5th, and you don't take anything for granted. You don't want things to be close if they don't have to be close. If you want them, you will want a clear win at every single state, so that there is no discrepancy or someone saying, "Oh no, we actually won that one," but some kind of way you cheated. The only way, you know, if you were truly confident in what you were doing, you wouldn't have to be worried about if the count will be there for you. The fact that if people look at this race, it's about, okay, one group has they people well behind them. I mean, they're staunch, whether you like them or not. They're there, and they will be there for him. You have to know that if you don't want him to get back in there, you can't let your guard down and just assume, oh, well, I heard that she was up in this state, or I heard that she was up in that state, so therefore I don't have to be worried about going out voting.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be a big mistake to just assume that. That's what they was telling you. All three of them was mentioned last night when they spoke. Don't let your guard down. You want to keep knocking on doors. You want to keep looking for volunteers. You want this to make sure, because this is going to affect your kids, your grandkids. So don't take it cavalierly of what's about to happen or could happen. That's my take on it.
Excuse me.
Bless you. Bless
Oh,
you.
my allergies got me in the country.
Oh, well, allergy season.
Yeah, allergy
Sometimes it's
season.
rougher than others.
Nonetheless, okay. We can't you can't take a foot off the gas. I mean,
Yes.
what do you think we need to do collectively to keep this momentum going, to keep the hope alive, to keep the momentum going? Because
Okay.
we got 76 days now. We're
Okay.
counting down.
Well,
I wonder, is somebody gonna be doing a count? Maybe we should do a countdown on the Mother Love Show. We say 76 days and 75 days and to the election, so we don't take our foot off of the gas.
Okay. Well, one of the things is going forward. We're
Mhm.
not going to go back. The theme for this year election is going forward.
Right.
That's the theme, not the theme from the past, but the theme is going forward.
Right.
Because if you care about your kids, your grandkids, you want to keep pushing forward.
And all our kids. I mean, it's
You
not
wanna
just,
keep- you wanna keep
our
pushing
four and no
forward.
more. It's all of our kids, because this is the future. We got to make sure that we prepare these young people for generations to come to understand the importance and the power of elections and the power of voting and what people have done to sacrifice. And a lot of people sacrificed their lives. So we had the privilege and the right to vote. I mean, they didn't even think women should vote. Then they didn't think black people should vote. Then they didn't think Latino people should vote. Then they didn't. I mean, it just gets on and on. But we have to stay in the trenches. There are those of us who are boots on the ground, and we need boots on the ground. We need ones in the middle. We need the legislative groups. We need the local people. We need the state people. We got to be in here with. We got to put our boots on and understand. See, Kamala Harris is a lot like Mother Love. I mean, you might not think this, but she, like me, we're allergic to BS, and we ain't going for it. This is not it. You got to speak truth to power, and we have to speak up and speak out, like she said yesterday. You don't like the way things are going? You don't like what people are saying? Do something. Do something, and do something positive. Don't just get, oh, it'll be somebody else's job. Oh, I don't really have to go and vote because my vote won't even count. And the fact that they can even think about that in this time and in this climate, in this decade, in this century, that your one vote doesn't count. Listen, if you got one vote and I got two votes, I win. Your vote does count. What do you think what do we need to do to stay in the trenches? What would you want to do to stay in the trenches to make sure that you don't let your foot off the gas, and we don't let the foot off the gas in our families and in our community?
Well, first of all, you have to be willing to talk to other people. The silence does not communicate. If you want people to believe and be energetic, willing to get out and vote, you have to be willing to talk to people and not just be a human. Oh, I'm just assuming that this will happen.
Mhm.
You have to be active by talking to people. I mean, talking to your friends. I mean, kind of gauge what your friends may think by talking with them. Everybody does not have to agree. See, I don't. When I talk to people, I'm never looking to say everybody has to agree with my opinion,
Right.
or I can't talk to them. I mean, that's one of the things that they mentioned last night in the speech that former former President Obama said. Learn how to talk to somebody else who don't always agree with you. If you only hear one sided, that's why people are become so polarized, because you're only willing to hear one side. You don't want to
Mhm.
hear two sides. It looked like we had some people wanting to chat in on this on our conversations, you know, because you have to be willing to make an effort if you want things to be all right. You know, that's what I think. Not assuming that your vote won't matter or that this is going to be an easy win. That you actually, make sure that you do your part, that so that the outcome, because it's not just for you, it is for your children, for your grandchildren, for their children.
It's for the
No,
future of this country.
well, you have to care about that.
Right.
You notice folks were trying to chat in.
Yeah, I see him. Hey, with my soror Ramunda Harris Fonville, she's on there looking good. Soror, you looking good too. All
Oh,
right, and we got E Groove say, stay on rump roast like bees to barbecue sauce and bacon. I ain't never heard that one before.
oh,
Like bees, it's like bees to honey to barbecue sauce and bacon. And I guess they
okay.
would want to
Because they
drive it
would be
on that.
attracted. Yes, they would. Yeah.
And that's what we have to do. We got to be on our game. We got to talk to each other. Yeah, no, we're not gonna always agree. You and I don't always agree. People, when we get into our heated discussions and going back and forth, they go, wait a minute, is they gonna still be mad? Listen, we're not afraid of voicing our opinions. You can't be afraid of voicing your opinion. People, you have to learn to speak up. Don't just sit around and be, all mealy mouthed and, oh, I don't know if I got no. Put your big girl panties on, put your big boy shorts on, and let's get in here and be the adults in the room and do what we know that we're supposed to do to move this country forward. And you got to start at home. You got to start talking to your kids. You don't wait till they the day before their 18th birthday before you talk about them, start introducing them into the world of, to expand their world into politics. When we were growing up, I've said this many times, when we were growing up, it wasn't like well, you want to be, no, we had to be involved in the political arena. We had to know we had to know the mayor, we had to know who our council person was, we had to know who the chief of police was, and we lived in the projects, and we knew they weren't coming down there looking for us. Some little colored children, they was going to take their time. I remember when I was 15 years old and we saw this, it was a big commotion down the street, and we lived parallel to a main artery, and they had just put a new ramp up to come off the 55th Street ramp in Cleveland, Ohio, and it was new, and a lot of people didn't even know where it went to. Well, this is in the heat of the summer, and young guy came off the ramp. He didn't know where he was. It was a young white guy, 19 years old, and they had the Afro set. Remember the Afro set and the Black Nationals?
Yes.
Okay, so this was part of the people in the Afro set. Well, some of them were standing outside and they saw this white kid riding on his motorcycle down the street, and for some asinine reason, somebody thought to shoot this child in the back. They shot this child in the back, and when he started skidding, you could just hear it. His motorcycle was just, oh, it was horrible. And he hit the rail, he hit the curb, and when he hit the curb, the momentum knocked him off his motorcycle, and it knocked him on the other side of the street, on our side of the street. We went out to see what was going on, because when you hear gunfire or some screeching, we all run out to see what's going on. And we got out there. We always run out there to see what was going on.
Okay,
and
you
I
were
was like,
scared.
wait a
You were
minute.
scared. You were worried about your life. You
No,
just
we
want to
just
see
going
what
out to
was
see what's
that.
going on.
Okay.
We heard the gunshot. Everybody started running. And we get out there to the side of the street. We see what's going on. This kid is laying in the street. His head and his helmet are on the curb. And his body was in the street. And he had this big giant hole in his back. And nobody would help him. I'm 15 years old. I'm just a kid myself. And all I could do was, holler for my brother, go get some blankets, go get some blankets. Somebody help me with him. And nobody would help me. And I said, I had my brand new outfit on. I just got with my little snack check. I was going out with my little boyfriend later on that day. I was all dressed and gussied up and everything. And that's when you're 15 and you go on a date, you got to take your sisters and stuff with you so don't know shenanigans go on. And I went out there and nobody would help him. And all I could think of was, let me get up under him. His head was on the curb and I scooted on the curb so his head would be in my lap. And this kid just held on to me so tight. I couldn't get his helmet off. But we could see it was a young white guy. That didn't make any difference to me. And we called the police to come down to our 55th Street because they knew it was a poor black community. And the police department wasn't no more than 8 minutes away. It took them almost 40 minutes to come down and see about him. This kid died in my lap. He took his last breath on my lap. And I just wouldn't let him go. I just would not let him go. I wouldn't let him go. I couldn't let him go. And my brother came out and they put the blankets on his back. And I remember one of the mothers in the neighborhood said something real nasty and real derogatory. And I was like, oh, I can't. This was so long ago and it still get me.
I mean, we all.
And she said something that was so horrible. I couldn't believe this came out of somebody's mother's mouth. Oh, just I ain't gonna even repeat the vile words that she said. And I was just like, my mother said I was in shock. And I remember looking and seeing everything like that wasn't me with his head in my lap. And so when the police finally came, and the police came, the ambulance came, the rescue squad, they all came. But the kid, he must have been dead a good 15, 20 minutes in my lap.
It was unfortunate. It was unfortunate that back at that particular time, the police weren't concerned about who was injured enough to want to come. I mean, and that some people, that even some people in the community weren't concerned about that young man.
No, they weren't.
I said that's the sad part, because if it had been their child and he was in another neighborhood and he got injured, they would want somebody to have compassion for him. Brother, they would have compassion. You want them to have compassion. You want them to have compassion and be willing to come out there and say, it doesn't matter who this is somebody else's child.
This is somebody's child. This is another human being. This is another human being. You don't just leave somebody laying dead in the street. And that's when the police came, they had to in the rescue squad, they had to pull his arms from around my waist because he was laying in my lap like a baby, and he wrapped his arms around the small of my back and was just holding on. And I knew he died when he was holding on so tight. And then it was just like I couldn't feel him feeling me anymore. And I said, I'm not gonna cry.
Well, I don't know about
this. And so when they came, they got him up. They got him up. They turned him over. And the first thing that the police said was like, "Oh, damn!" I was like, "Oh, now you concerned about him? This kid been dead for 20 minutes." So anyway, they got me up. My brother got me up. My clothes was all bloody, because he was bleeding from like every place. I mean, he was just bleeding from every place. And they came and got me, and they walked me back down to the house. And just as they was walking me back to the house, my mother was coming up. She had just parked, but she was coming down the walkway. And she was just, walking. She was just me, and coming down one of big things. Then all of a sudden, she started, she picked up the pace. Then she started trying. Then she started running really, really fast. And when she got to me, she held me so tight and she said, "Oh, baby, what's wrong? What happened? Are you hurt? Are you hurt?" I said, "No, Mama, they killed a kid in the street and nobody would help him." And she had to get me together to get me cleaned up. I was bloody. I was just crying. I was just, I mean, it was like I had an out of body experience. And so from that day at 15 years old, I knew I wasn't going to ever allow anybody else, if I could, to be ever mistreated like that because of the color of their skin. I wasn't going to do it. And then after that, and then Dr. King, when he came out in 1968 and gave I Have a Dream speech, that was in 1968, right? And that just reinforced it. We have to look at each other for the content of our character, not by the color of our skin. And watching these powerful people in politics endorse Kamala Harris at this point, at this time in our life, let us know that hope is making a comeback.
We're going forward. We're not going back. Okay, I got it. We're not going back. We're going forward. That's where we're going.
And that's what we got to focus on.
And
I tell nobody I was crying on the radio. Ain't no crying and talk radio on podcast.
If you want people to be okay, you got to say, look, what are my choices, and what makes the most logical sense on what I should or should not be doing. If I care about myself and my kids, their future, their kids' future, their grandkids' future, because this will affect generations to come. And so sometimes some issues are bigger than others. And sometimes people have to stop and look at the situation and say, wait a minute, what is at hand at this particular point, at this moment in time? This is a moment in time that if you want to keep democracy, what do you think democracy is perfect or not? It's better to have democracy than not at all. And that is the choice that we're coming down with. If you look at what they have, what the other side has said that they are willing to do if they get into office, how they want to change the rules, how they want to get rid of public education. How could anybody, I don't care what logic you're trying to use.
There is no logic. But you don't want people educated. Remember they shot that little girl in Afghanistan because she wanted to go to school and they didn't just shot the child in the head. And she did not die.
That's why we're not going backwards. That's the thing. We're not going backwards. You have to stop and think. There are people saying that they want to erase your history. They want to turn back the hands of time if they can. Either you believe you want to keep going forward, or you sit back and say, I hope that they really don't do what they said they would do if they get control again. That's part of not letting your guard down. And most folks have to understand, you cannot let your guard down, not in this election, because of who's running in this election. I mean, we've lived under this democratic system, for better or for worse, for the past 400 years.
With all of our
good people. You've seen good people, and you've seen bad people. If you can't not determine who's not in the best interest of the majority of us, because people have special interests. I mean, that you have families, that's your special interest because they're your family. But do you care about other people around you? Do you allow other people into your circle, or is it just me, my four, and no more? Sometimes we have to think about that when we think about the consequences of not or not getting out to vote and saying I'll leave it up to somebody else and hope that they will be the ones who will save democracy. I don't want to get out and do it. You have to stop and think. If you have a daughter, a mother, a sister, an auntie, a niece, that they're talking about this, determining what they can do with their body with no consequences for the man. I mean, that's, if there's nothing else that I remind you about on a regular basis when we bring this topic up, is that they're not pushing for any kind of punishment for the man, only for the woman. So if you somebody that with wealth and you still out there messing around and you get a young lady pregnant and you're in a state that does not allow it, what are you gonna do now then?
You know, they had a
No, I mean,
what
people haven't
they
thought
had
that far.
there was a and it came and it went. It was like it was like an afterthought and was a blurb. And I guess they thought, well, maybe we shouldn't talk about this in politics. That how all these old men were saying, you know, they want to tell, you know, women don't know what to do with their bodies. They can't make a decision because they're too emotional. We could do it for them, or don't. No, you don't get to have an abortion. But when they mistresses have abortion, when their mistresses get pregnant, first thing they do is say, you need to go and have to get that taken care of. You know,
So
I'll pay for it.
okay, so
Don't worry about it. But they'll never tell you how many of their mistresses that they may go and have an abortion, terminate a pregnancy because they didn't want their wives or their families or the public to find out they was out there catting around. It's convenient for them.
Well, that's
it's
why I
good for them when it's convenient for them. But the rest of us, we don't get to have a say in it. I'm
and that's
my
why I
mother
say
would be
you should
rolling
vote them
over
down.
in her grave if she, you know, if she even thought about this. As hard as that she fought and hard as we fought to make sure that Roe v. Wade became a constitutional right that for a woman to choose. And that's what they don't seem to understand. It's not
They
just
do
about
understand. Don't say they
abortion.
don't understand.
It's not just about terminating a pregnancy. Wait a minute,
But they do understand.
wait a minute, this idiot, this one, you know, that they don't really, he don't even know what he's talking about when he's saying women can have abortions after the baby is born. I mean, how you even put them words together? And then when the guy came on and said, well, he didn't really say, you know, during the pandemic, go inject yourself with bleach. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. He's still right there on the podium and said that. Well, maybe you should put some bleach in it. Maybe you should get some disinfectant. That'll cover it. Maybe we could just pretend that it's not there and it'll go away. And see, that's what I dig about when you speak truth to power. You don't have to make it up. Let them hang themselves. Let them say what they want to say, and then you could go back and just let them. This is what you said. This is what you did. This is what you said, where your position was. Oh, now you going back on it. Like he dogging out, you know, military families. Talking about the Medal of Valor is the biggest one you could give, and you don't have to be in the military. I don't understand. I just don't understand. And I can talk to people that don't agree with me. I can talk to people that don't agree with me. But then when they don't agree with me and we got a difference of opinion, well, I've also come to know that when we have a difference of opinion, they kind of stop speaking to me.
Okay, but that's not the point. The point is things that don't change until people are willing to talk to one another. Because sometimes, you know, even if you may not admit that the person has said something that makes sense, you may go back home and think about it and say, okay, wait a minute. Now that I had a chance to think about it, I don't want to tell them in front of their face that yes, what they said made sense. But when I get home, I have a chance to stop and think about it. That's why communication does matter. And you don't always have to sit back and say, I have to hear you say that you agree with me all the time. Sometimes you have to allow a person a chance to think on their own. Give them a chance to absorb what's been said.
That's where discernment comes in.
Well, it won't happen if you demanded that somebody, you have to change your mind immediately. A lot of us just become stubborn and don't do anything because we're trying to tell someone, you have to do it right now. You have to. No, you don't have to. We would like people to do things that will be good for all of us. But sometimes you have to talk to them and let them go home and think about it. And they with themselves and with their family. Well, so-and-so mentioned this. And now that I really had a chance to think about it, does that make sense? Does it truly make sense when you talk to your kids about law and order and say that if you want your kids to believe in law and order, that you'll be willing to put somebody in office that's been convicted of 44 crimes? I mean,
34.
34 crimes.
Felonies at that.
No, but I don't want to give him any more because I'm not wishing bad news on anybody. I'm saying when you talk to people, okay, that's you.
No, just keep going. Just keep talking. Go ahead. I won't say what you're going to say.
What I'm saying is that when you're looking at your young kids and they are impressionable, is this the impression that you truly want your kids to have, that we will put a person in office that has been convicted of 34 crimes? That this is the type of image that you will want? I mean, when you get past all the politics and the name calling and all this, we stop and look at apples to apples. Is this the image that you would want your child to see representing this country? Somebody who's been convicted of 34 crimes? And I mean,
and is a sexual predator. He's an admitted sexual predator. This is the guy that
that too.
said.
I mean, when you talk about morals and scruples, you talk
Well,
about,
he don't have.
I mean, as a country, I'm saying as a country, because you're talking to everybody in the country because you don't know who's listening. And I ask, we ask about morals and scruples. Morally, do you want somebody to be running this country that's been convicted of 34 crimes
That's
and
morally
numerous other things?
bankrupt.
Is this the type image that you want for this country? When you talk about having a strong person, does that display strength to see somebody who's been convicted of these wrongdoings and say, but they're still good enough to be the head of the country? I mean, that's about morals. What kind of morals are we really talking about having?
And what happened to law and order? They just ignore law and order. I mean, maybe
when it's convenient.
In their head, they're following their own laws, and we just don't know what they are.
Well, isn't that out of convenience? Isn't that out of convenience? Because if they, just like they tell everybody else, okay, if this person, is this or that, they want you to just look down and discourage this person because you claiming that they're this or they're that. What do you want people to do when they look at you and it's clearly you've been convicted of 34 counts?
Oh, don't pass judgment on me.
I compare. I was going to decide whether you can have a child or not, whether you can have an abortion or not. I'm passing judgment on you.
Whether you can go get birth control so you don't get pregnant. So that you get condoms. You gotta have access to condoms. Give them to your boyfriend, your husband, whoever you doing the thing with. It's a 50-50 it's a 50-50 foundation when you're talking about having sex, and that sex it has creating a baby. And now you are, well, it's fun while it lasted. I don't even want to be bothered with it. I could just go on off just because I'm in Podunk, Mississippi, or Alabama, or Kentucky, or Washington, or wherever I am. They don't have to know where I am. That's what you chose to do. I'm like, oh,
but that's still wrong.
But see, this is the part that gets me, because a lot of these people don't understand when they have these kids will grow up. They don't stay babies. They grow up and they're going to ask questions. And when you standing there and they looking you in the face and they're asking you, well, Mom, Dad, what did you do? Why you didn't vote for that? You didn't think I was worthy to be able to grow up to be smart enough, to make my own decisions?
Make my own choices.
I'm saying, this is what I found out, what I realized as a parent. And I'm sure a lot of parents can relate to this. You really don't know how good or bad you are at parenting until your children grow up and go out into the world. I remember my mother used to say this to all of us all the time, not just to us, but to all of our friends, all of our uncles and aunts and cousins. She always said, our job is to make sure you got a roof over your head, you got clothes, you got food, you got to respond. This is my responsibility to make sure you have this. And your responsibility is to keep yourself clean, to have, make sure that you're okay, do your chores, make sure you go to school, you get a good education. You don't get to sit up in the school and be going to sleep and all this other kind of craziness going on. Your job is to get a good education, so when you are no longer under my tutelage, you can go out and become a viable, productive member of society. And those words stuck in my head: viable, viable, you got to go out, you got to give them a foundation. And as a parent, you really don't know what you did until they go out there into the world. One day, when we first moved out here to California, and our son was 12 when we moved out here. So he was like right at the beginning of middle school. And he had always been in private school. I always went to Catholic school. And then he came out here, and the tuition was just ridiculous. I'm like, oh, this is crazy. I'm just coming out here new. Let's get him in a good public school. So we found a good magnet school for him. And, he took the test and he did really, really well. And, like his first 2 or 3 days in school, oh, he was like a pig in slop. He came home, Mom, Dad, we can run up and down the hallway. I don't have to wear a uniform anymore. I'm like, oh, let's nip this in the bud immediately. There was rules and regulations he had to follow. You don't be running through the school. on any of this. You got to be able to come up and be a viable, productive member of society. And one of the great things that this guy that you're looking at with me on this show, this guy took it upon himself to get to learn and know about our son's kids. This is our only child. And so he wanted to know who his friends were and, what we are doing. I mean, when we would go out, where you going? Out. Who you going with? My friends. Where you going? I don't know. I would have been talking out the back of my shoulder because my mom would have slapped my lips all the way around my head. I want to know who your friends are. And you have said, I want to know who your friends are. And if your friends don't want to know who we are, they're not going to be your friends. And the foundation that you put into these guys, because a lot of them came from single parent families. They were, in homes where their mother was the single parent. And I think it's only like maybe one out of all of them is like maybe 2 or 3 of them that had, mothers and fathers in the home. And you took it upon yourself to say, let me find out what you guys are doing. Let me talk to y'all. And they really appreciated, the mothers appreciated when they graduated from high school. Oh, they were just falling all over him. They're like, I didn't think my son was going to graduate from high school. And all you showed an interest, and not just our son. You showed an interest in all those kids.
We're all God's children.
To this day.
We're all God's children.
Right.
And if you think about how you want to be treated, or how you want somebody else to treat you, or how you want somebody to treat your kids. Look at how you treat somebody else that you don't even know.
Right.
To be willing to say, all right, I would have study hall with them Monday through Fridays, so that we would know where our son was. 2, they would also know where their sons were, because it was 9 of them that came over every day after school. So their parents had a chance to know where their sons were, and knew that they were not out drinking or smoking or out chasing women while they was there during that period. Now, I can't account for what somebody would have done after they left. No, I mean that's being realistic.
Right.
But
teenagers.
But being during that time, I said I would stop and take the time to look out for this group. I mean, everybody's not able to do that, so I don't look down on somebody and say, well, how come you didn't have the time to do that? No,
right.
Everybody does not, but it takes a village to help to raise anybody. And if you show other people that you care and you are concerned about their welfare, and not just only the people in your immediate family, things generally come out better for all of us. And that's what this election is about, is thinking about all of us, and how all of us can be okay if we care about what's going on. And that's something that we all need to really stop and think about. What do you want to come out in the long run? What do you want to come? I mean, it's just like old school music. She used to talk about things that happened to her as a kid, and to get to know people and how it changed her life.
She said, no, we're not perfect, but better than it was when I was growing up. I snuck around and loved people, but guess what? I love the people and still do. She said, I snuck my friends. I snuck my friends because of my prejudice, and she didn't like the way people look. But I did sneak them in, and I did it well. Some of us are still friends today, and that's what's important, because when you put that foundation in people, most of the people that he grew up with out here in California, and even the guys back in Cleveland, he's still friends with to this day. We watched them have their kids. We watched them get married. We watched them have their kids. We watched them. Wait a minute. We went over to our son's house, and I was like, 2 or 3 of them was over there. They was all hanging out like they do when they doing what they do, and they come in and I'm like, dang, they look old. All of them got gray hair, got gray beards. I'm like, I don't know. When did y'all get older than me? It was like, oh, you funny. And to be able to have the privilege to watch them grow up and become men and become viable, productive members of society, that was really, really important. And they to this day, they still respect us as parents. They're still very polite. When I come in, they all still stand up when I come into a room, and you taught them that. They still open the doors for me. All of them open the doors for their women. You know, some of the women, don't be having that door for me. I don't do doors. I make trash. I don't take trash out. I don't sweep floors. I drop stuff on the floor. This is what I do. We work as a team. And that's what we got to do. Teamwork. I mean, when you look at these big,
but if you don't get a chance to teach somebody
and Tim Walton are bringing in and the momentum and the fire. I mean, it's like we've been waiting on something like this. And you know, and they don't bless their heart, you know, and that's why I appreciate, you know, when Barack Hussein Obama said, when he came out and spoke back in the 80s, and he said, this is not a Black America, white America, Latino America, Asian America. We are not United States of America. We need to be united because the world is watching and they're listening. The children are watching and they're listening. And when you act like you out of control, then the kids gonna work. Shoot, the president don't have to pay taxes. Well, I gotta pay taxes. You know, just because they're doing it, you don't do the same thing. When we was growing up, you know, they would say, well, you know, you gotta have your own man. So if your friends say, come on, we gonna run off this cliff and jump off the cliff, you gonna run and jump off the cliff with them? I'm like, no, that would not be me. I will not be the one.
I would think you would be. I think you would be saying, "Well, how high is the cliff?" I could be wrong, but you know, just kind of, you know, that if you had looked over and said, "Okay, wait a minute," I
can make that jump. I can hit that branch right there.
You know, but that's not the spirit of how it's being given. It was saying stop and think about what you're doing.
And think for
stop
yourself.
And care about your fellow man. That's why this election means something. And for people who say, well, it doesn't mean anything. If you're a human being and you live in America, it means something, because either your taxes are going to go up, somebody else's taxes will come down, but it's something that's going to happen whether you get out and vote or not. And if you're concerned about it, you should get out and vote and say, wait a minute, do I want the richest people in this country to get another tax break? The richest people get a tax break?
People, we don't even be thinking about that. We be thinking about how we gonna keep the lights on, how we gonna keep the rent paid, how we gonna get
but why would you think about that?
How we gonna get school supply? Oh, my baby needs braces.
Okay, but this is how you come up with the money, though. You make people pay their fair share.
Right.
Okay, if they was paying their fair share, the economy would be even better if the 1% or 2% of the richest people in this country gave a little more money.
No, pay their fair share tax. They gotta give me that. Pay your fair share. Okay, you want to ride on the streets, you want to ride on the planes, pay your fair share.
Okay, reality is no. I don't think they're gonna ever. Even the Democrats win, will they ever make them pay truly their fair share? No. Because there's too many rich folks are in Congress already. No, they're not going to tax themselves that heavy. We have the richest Congress
in the history of America.
Okay, so I said, yes, and I know that, and I'm saying, okay, for them to start paying more, yes, I would hope that will come to pass. I don't want them to get another tax break, because they got a tax break and everybody else had to pay for it.
Right.
Somebody still has to pay for it.
And that somebody is us. When they talk about Uncle Sam and they be talking about the government, you and I, we are the government.
If we give them a tax cut,
see, that's another thing. What the American people got to really get into their psyche and understand this. Politicians work for us. We elect them to do our bidding, to do what we say we need you to do in our districts, in our community. This is not your, the seat of chest for you to just come in and take all the money and do whatever you want to do. You are there to be a public servant to the people, to your constituents. That's what you're supposed to do. Not being here taking all the money and you got kids in your district that can't even get breakfast because their mama can't work and get a decent wage because she got to work 3 jobs because the daddy just don't walk off, or whatever the case is. He went to jail because that's another thing. A lot of people don't understand. A lot of people that's in jail right now are in jail because they needed to take care of their families and they had to do something. And a lot of that comes from not going to school, thinking that, you could get away. You might get bound, but you won't get away. They might kick your butt. Just don't let it be an easy win. Get out there, get educated. Don't think that don't get me wrong. Everybody is not going to go to college. Everybody doesn't need to go to college. And when you think about these big conglomerations, Bill Gates, he dropped out of college. And look at what he did, change the world. So don't say that you have to have a college education. And if you feel like we have to have a college education, why isn't education in the United States why do we have it should be free for everybody? Get in on your academic merit.
Okay, wait a minute. It can be free if we voted for it. Wait a minute. You vote for everything else. You can vote for that too. If you wanted to make college free and that it didn't matter who you were, if you wanted to go, you could. It is. I mean, they're talking about that. If you listen, you're listening to the Democrats in their platform. They're saying they want to make,
education.
If you go to, if you want to go to junior college, a 2-year college, that should be free for anybody in the country. Period.
Any of them. So, I mean,
okay.
And then women and the college fees kept going up and up and up and up, and parents and people that the community, they going in more debt and more debt. I mean, when you charging a parent $57,000 a year to go to school, and when they graduate, they settle with $250,000 in debt. When are they? I mean, the weight of that, and then they want to get pissed off at President Biden because he said we're gonna forgive $1 billion worth of these kids. Loans, they're talking about trillions of dollars in student loan, and the interest on it is sky high. And it's like,
okay,
they're educated, but we got another way to keep them down because now they can't pay for their car. They got to pay their loans back.
Okay, well, think about it.
Pay their interest back.
Okay, wait a minute. If you borrowed the money, wait a minute. It is still your, it is your responsibility. Maybe you shouldn't have to pay it all back, but to say that you should be scot-free, wait a minute. You do what you knew you were signing up for that loan. Yes, they're too high, but then we should work to get them lower. But to say that you shouldn't have to pay your loan back. I mean, no. I mean, I
didn't say you shouldn't have to pay your loan back. I said it shouldn't be so extremely difficult. Okay. It shouldn't be such a hindrance. I mean, when you're talking about, there are people in my immediate family, in our family that have PhDs. That I mean, they got PhDs in urban development, they got PhDs in journalism, they got PhDs in social management, and got
so
these like big degrees.
The financial burden didn't stop.
And they saddle with so much debt, and they'll tell them, "Oh, well, you overqualified for this job." Wait a minute, I need to get a job to start paying my debt down.
Okay, but then also, wait a minute. In all fairness, sometimes people are not realistic about the fields that they're going into as well. You don't just pick any field. You got to be smart enough to know that if you get into a field that may be obsolete, maybe that's not the classes to be taken while you're in college.
Learning is never obsolete.
Okay, wait.
And teaching is never going to be obsolete.
Okay, and did I say that it would be? I'm saying, but everybody's not a teacher when they come out of college. People do a lot of other things. You got to be looking at things that will pay you. Once you get out of school, I mean,
I say start your own business. Start your own business.
If everybody has business to do, who would be the shopper?
It's going to always be somebody else that will do the shopping.
If everybody had their own business, then who would be doing this?
Everybody's not going to have their own business. If you wait a minute. If you're a student enough to go to college long enough to become a doctor in whatever field it is, urban planning, journalism, healthcare, and you got a PhD, and they're telling you overqualified, and you're like, well, look, I need to get a job because I got to get this monkey off my back. I can't be doing all of this. I got to have a way to be able to take care of myself. When I'm listening to people say,
but then you're smart enough.
When I'm listening to people say, Mother Love, I got a PhD in XYZ, and it's so difficult for me to get a job that either I go in and they look at me like, oh, and if you're a woman of color, or if you don't look like they look, if you got tattoos or you got piercing, they don't even want to, they just want to look at that and not look at what you bring to the table as an academic. Then, because they always want to put, labels on you. Okay, well, she can't look like that and be here, or he can't look like that and be there. I had to change my attitude about it too. I had to change my attitude too, and I'll be the first one to tell you, I had to change my attitude too, because the way that I was thinking was being very judgmental. And and I too can be turned around, and I too can be showed a different light, and I too can be able to say, oh, that wasn't right. Speaking of that, I was reading this article the other day about a gentleman down in Florida I want to
Yeah.
say Miami. Die hard MAGA. I mean, just whatever he believed, everything the 45th said, what he stood for, everything. And then, and he was starting to, start thinking, well, maybe let me step back from this a bit and see, where this is going. And he started stepping back and listening to it and, discerning what the information that he was getting or the misinformation that he was getting.
Okay.
And this is a grown white man down in Florida who said, I have made a huge mistake in supporting this administration and supporting the Republicans and this misguided, hate-filled, visceral individual who, but all he's hell bent on is revenge, and everybody who did him wrong or he thinks he perceived that they did him wrong, and he was like, he said he looked back at it, and the news lady, she asked him, she said, well, when did you start to realize that this might not have been a positive way of thinking and that you needed to step back from this? And he started bringing up, he said, he talked about the insurrection. He said he realized that wasn't a peaceful, patriotic thing for them to do. That was an insurrection, work to overthrow our government, to defile the Constitution. And he said, even with all of that, she asked him, was there like one particular thing that really got you? And he brought up the massacre in Uvalde, Texas. And he said, I'm not going to even listen to this. See, when what's his name, Alex Jones was sitting up here telling these families that lost their babies and the teachers that were slaughtered in Sandy Hook, that was a hoax, I don't wish nobody no bad news because he got enough on him that evil gonna eat him in from the inside out. And he's talking, I can't believe I'm not being treated fairly. Really? You got to think about what you're saying to people and what you're spewing out there to people and what, the energy that you're putting out there. And all the time, just because you're talking loud and you're talking fast, doesn't mean you're talking right. Doesn't mean you're speaking right. Doesn't mean that you're not taking this situation so serious. This is one of the most serious election periods that we have been in since Barack Obama became president for 2 terms. And that's history. That you can't go back, you can't change that. That's it. And a lot of people still can't deal with that. Okay. Now you're gonna come up and say, I'm running a campaign and I'm running for the Republicans and I'm running against old man Joe Biden and he old and I'm just 3 years younger than him. And okay, this is what we're gonna do. And then they flip the script on you. They flip the script. I love my job as president. I love this country more. Now, you tell me if that was a class act or was that a class act?
That was a class act, but I would hope after the election that they put in the law that you can't run for president after 70 on either side, that nobody can run for the president of the United States after 70 years of age. If you've not
now, is that ageism on your part, Mr. Kennedy?
Yes,
because people in their 70s and 80s, a lot of people still have
once
all of
again,
their cognitive ability.
Here we go again. Here we go now. Then that's telling me that it doesn't matter how old you get, that you're still going to always be at the top of your game. No, you're not. And statistics says we all, not some, all slow down every year a little bit more. This is the most high pressure job that a person could have. Why are you trying to put that on an 80-year-old? Why are you trying to put that on a 70-year-old person? As if to say that nobody younger than that could possibly do that job.
See, that's you know what? And to look at that, well, well, what about this? If they are 70, ought they not have to take an aptitude and a cognitive test? Remember, dude took a cognitive test and he couldn't remember 5 things. I took a cognitive test and I thought, because I was, as I'm getting more seasoned, getting more flavor, I know that I'm slowing down. I know that I'm looking for words sometimes and they just don't come to me. And I know the words, but it just doesn't come to me. Okay. And so I was concerned. I talked to my primary care physician. It's a horrible, terrible. I remember I said to her, I said, I think I would like to take a cognitive test because because I feel like I'm slipping. Like I can't remember things, and it's
Okay,
hard for me to.
so why are you pushing there for somebody over to be 75, 80 years old and still be running for president?
Oh, well, see, now that part I don't think so. That's the hardest job in the whole world. And
that's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Wait a minute.
I agree.
All I said is that why push somebody that far when we don't have to, because there are far capable people who are younger that can fill that position
and can pick up the gauntlet and run and have the energy to run. Barack Obama, he had the energy to be the president for 8 years. He had the fortitude. He exercised, he played ball, he ate well, he loved his wife, he wasn't out there catting around his kids.
George Bush was young enough to do it.
Right.
Okay, Bill Clinton was young enough. The point that I'm making, okay, if you get to 70, okay, slow down, cool your jets now. For wanting to run this country, I mean, is that just horrible to say, okay, if you didn't do it by then, that you shouldn't just have to be the one to do it?
You know what? You got a point there about that turning 70, because when you run for president, you have to be at least 35 years old. So why wouldn't it? That would make sense. You got to be 35 to run, and when you're 70, you shouldn't even be looking at that.
That's 35 years has passed. If you ain't tried to seek that office in that time, you don't need to seek that office. Let somebody else seek that particular office.
So I won't be able to have my dreams fulfilled, that I could be married to President Kennedy. So that has that ship sailed? Is that window closed?
But they haven't changed the law yet.
Well, you could be the president of my life. How about that?
Okay, well then that'll work.
That'll work. I bet you wouldn't. That's not gonna happen.
But stop and think about it though. I mean, we're talking about the highest office in the land.
And in the world. And we still the big dogs on the porch.
Okay, being the big dogs, that we should want somebody who's younger. And if you went in at 69, okay, if you was able to run at 69 and you got elected, then you would be in there till you were 73. Okay, but then you would not be able to run again. I'm saying over 70, if you happen to get in there before you turn 70.
But what about if
you can't run again after?
Viral,
you take your viral self. You take your viral self to Florida and to your retirement home.
Why you got to be in a retirement home?
Well, don't go to a retirement. Go down there to a golf course in Florida. But you don't need to be trying to run the country. That's one of the problems that we don't want to look at in itself. That you should be trying to force somebody who's that old, because how much in touch are they with people 50 years younger than them?
Well, now that's a very good point.
That's
what I dug about.
They can relate.
Wait a minute. Speaking of that, that's what I dug about the first Gentleman Doug Emhoff. He was just on point. He was like, yeah, they probably blowing up my site now. He knew what the words were. And I just have to say, Kamala, you married a good one. You got a good guy. He was so humble and funny and just impressionable. I mean, he was just so impressive. He just didn't come off as being phony or, right. I mean, he went out there and talked about the woman that he fell in love with. And women, his first phone call to her, he was like, this is Doug. Yeah, I'm Doug. He said, they celebrate their wedding anniversary. They attend the wedding anniversary on Thursday. And he says, every year on their anniversary, she plays that message for him. Now, you got to be comfortable in your own to make you laugh. When your girlfriend that's going to be your wife and be the mama to your children. And that was another cool thing. Her and his ex-wife, the mother of his children, they get along. The kids call her the three-headed parenting machine. And to be on that same page with someone who loves your children, where they don't have to even be going through all of that. And the fact that they look at her.
You don't punish a new person to come in and say, because I had these kids with somebody else, you shouldn't say anything to them. You shouldn't do anything with them. If you put these restrictions on a person coming in, that's wrong, because you chose to bring them in. You should be open enough to say, I brought you into the whole family, not just to me.
Not just to me,
to the whole family.
Well, we always have a spirited conversation. Before we go, let me just give this one last comment from one of our listeners. Then let's fire these old white men who take all the power and all the money and hire some fresh new generation who know that Congress and all of that is actually a serious job. Mr. Kennedy, it's always a pleasure. Remember, y'all can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, GeoSavant, iHeartRadio, and a whole bunch of them. And remember this, no matter how big or tall, short or small, thick or thin, it matters not what skin you're in. Everybody needs some mother love now.